Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Make sure you check them out online at TuscaloosaToyota.com. We're glad to be with you on this Thursday afternoon. It's a very busy time for Alabama athletics, as it's St. Patrick's Day as well. I got my green on, so do not pinch me. But we will take a look at all of the different headlines for today, and all the headlines are presented by RJ Young. They're the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They furnished us with this outstanding smart board to go through all the different highlights on what's going to be a very busy show coming up here this afternoon, as we'll be talking with three Crimson Tide student athletes, both present and former. We'll start with Megan Abrams of the women's basketball team, as she'll preview what Alabama has coming up in the women's NIT tonight. Also talk about some of the community service she's done this year, as she was named a member of the SEC community service team. We'll talk women's basketball and men's basketball with former Tide great and now an analyst Richard Hendrix, as he'll be breaking down what Alabama needs to do this weekend in the NCAA tournament on the men's side and on the women's side in the WNIT. Then we'll talk with a national champion. Bobby Colantonio Jr. was able to win the national championship, the individual national championship in the weight throw last week. And he's somebody with a really incredible story, because just 6 years ago, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He was able to beat cancer and now is the best weight thrower in all of college athletics. So great conversation as well with Bobby Colantonio Jr. We look forward to having that in a few moments. Crimson Tide men's basketball team. It's going to be a busy week for Alabama. We hope for the Crimson Tide a very long stay in California, because the Crimson Tide are going to be in San Diego taking on now the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 3:15 coming up tomorrow. Our airtime on the network with Chris Stewart, Brian Passink, Tom Stipe will be at 2 p.m. for the Crimson Tide and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, as we will get to see Notre Dame based off the strength of their first 4 win last night, 89-87 over the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in Dayton, Ohio. So Notre Dame's going to have quite a turnaround going from Dayton late on a Wednesday night all the way to San Diego on a Friday afternoon. That will be quite a matchup. Alabama against Notre Dame, and the Crimson Tide going back to the NCAA tournament, back-to-back seasons for the first time since 05-06. So Nate Oates is really finding some consistency with this group. We're certainly glad to see it. Take a look at the Crimson Tide women's basketball team again tonight. Alabama will be in Troy to take on the Troy Trojans, a team that won the Sun Belt Championship in the regular season. Everything was going well for Troy towards an NCAA tournament berth until they faced Sharika Wright and Texas Arlington, who upset them in the Sun Belt Championship game. I mentioned Sharika Wright because she was previously an assistant coach to Coach Curry here at Alabama. So congratulations to Coach Wright on that big win. But with that, Troy is not in the NCAA tournament, and they are hosting the Crimson Tide. So you have two teams that really feel like they were one win away from making it to the big dance. And they will start playing the women's NIT tonight. Last time Alabama was in this tournament, you go back to the 2017-18 season, Crimson Tide made it as far as the Elite Eight of that tournament before bowing out to Virginia Tech. So a chance at another long run coming up for the Crimson Tide women's basketball team. And building on the future, Carly Weathers, already named the 2022 2A Miss Tennessee basketball. She is really the Gatorade Player of the Year in Tennessee already, just a talented freshman that'll be joining the Crimson Tide next season, someone we'll be catching up with over the summer here on Crimson Drive. Let's talk baseball for a moment. The Crimson Tide baseball team last night hit the road and had a tough contest. 3-2 was the final score in Hattiesburg against Southern Miss. Zane Denton homered in the first inning, but then Alabama wouldn't score again until the 8th inning. Quiet night for the Bats against a really good Southern Miss team that's made it to the NCAA tournament 5 of the last 6 years. Now this weekend, the Crimson Tide will be home against the 9th-ranked Florida Gators. Friday through Sunday series, you see the start times at 6 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Sunday at 1 o'clock. And if you have never sat before in the right field terrace at Sewell Thomas Stadium, you have the chance to do so. Students are on spring break, so you could be a right field rager for any of the games coming up. Just go to rolltide.com/tickets for more information. Would love to see right field packed at the Joe. Bring your dog as well. Always a good time. Speaking of good times, last night at the Rhodes House, it was a packed house to watch Alabama softball, who over the weekend went 1-2 against LSU, swept in a doubleheader on Saturday before winning the Sunday game to start SEC play, and then last night hosted number 2 Florida State. Yeah, number 2 Florida State, number 3 Alabama, and it was Florida State getting a narrow 5-4 win, and great rally late for the Crimson Tide, but still Florida State got the 1-run victory. So Alabama, a chance to bounce back this weekend, but now you got another top 10 team in town in Tuscaloosa in the 8th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. So Friday's game is at 6 p.m., Saturday at 2 o'clock, Sunday at 1:30, with radio coverage, of course, available across the network. We look forward to Alabama softball back at home at the Rhodes House. A couple of other headlines for this weekend. Gymnastics, we're all going to be rooting on. Dana Duckworth and the Crimson Tide gymnastics team trying to win another SEC championship. Last year, the Crimson Tide were able to win in Huntsville, but now the meet will be coming up Saturday in Birmingham on the SEC Network, so we look forward to that matchup. Alabama trying to defend its SEC championship and also get a really good score to help set the table for a great run coming up at the NCAA championships. Speaking of the NCAA championships, right now swimming and diving competing in those in Atlanta. Head to RollTide.com for some of the latest results. Best of luck to Margot Gear and the Crimson Tide swimming and diving teams. And the women's golf last week finished in 4th place at the Valspar Augusta Invitational. Anytime you make it to Augusta in golf, it's a special time, and the Crimson Tide had a really good run there, so congratulations to Coach McPotter and the Crimson Tide on that run in Augusta. So again, a very busy time for Alabama athletics, and now here on Crimson Drive, we want to shift the focus for a moment to Alabama women's basketball, and specifically to Megan Abrams, as she and Brittany Davis especially have been the engine for this team in the great run in Nashville in the SEC tournament with all the scoring they had. Think back to the Georgia game, 74 points for Alabama, 50 were from Abrams and Davis, and Megan Abrams has put together a terrific senior season. We hope for a lot more in her Alabama career, starting with this run in the women's NIT. Here's a one-on-one conversation with Alabama's Megan Abrams.
First of all, Megan, Roll Tide, how's everything going today?
It's going well. Thanks for asking.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you join us as the Crimson Tide get ready for the postseason. Just how excited are you knowing there is more basketball in store for you this year with this very special team?
Yeah, we're definitely excited to continue our season. We get to play in the postseason, so the opportunity is in front of us. So we're just really excited to, like I said, to be able to continue to play basketball. So we just have to make the most of the games that we have ahead.
And for the Crimson Tide, a really strong finish to the regular season, a good run in Nashville at the SEC tournament. Just what was working so well the last few weeks?
Yeah, I would say that we really just played together as a team. We were able to share the ball and like I said, just play together. So not turn the ball over and things like that. So I think that's really what helped us finish the season out strong.
Of course, we've seen some good defensive effort from the Tide all season long, but also on the offensive end, a lot of people have taken note of what you and Brittany Davis, Hannah Barber at times have been able to do. How much fun is it when you're able to score, 20 plus points like you were able to do a lot down the stretch because you've been able to get to the basket and convert?
Yeah, it definitely feels good. I just want to put my team in a position to win. So, if that's me putting points on the board, then I think that's what I'm going to do and help my team contribute that way. So that's really all I want to do is just help my team win.
And then when you're able to watch Hannah Barber knock down some threes and Brittany Davis light it up from outside, just what's that like for you as a teammate getting to see them having success?
It really brings joy to my heart. I know that they work so hard. Practice and when we're not practicing. So it just feels good to see their success translate to games. And it really brings energy to our team.
What kind of range does Brittany Davis have? We've seen her knock down some 3-pointers from beyond NBA range, it seems.
Yeah, as soon as she crosses half court, Brittany's able to light it up. So we definitely seen some tough baskets from her down the stretch. So yeah, as soon as she crosses half court, man, it could go up at any time.
Well, now you got to be excited again. The Crimson Tide are getting ready to play in the women's NIT. First up against Troy. Just what can you tell us about what you've learned about the Trojans so far?
Yeah, they're a really competitive team. They like to offensive rebound and push in transition. So I think those are going to be some of the keys to the game that we've been focusing on in preparation these last couple of days. So I think those are the biggest takeaways and what we need to do to win.
What's the mood of the team been like since you got back from Nashville and started working on whatever the postseason would be, NCAA tournament or women's NIT?
Yeah, the mood of the team has really just been, to stay together. We weren't sure about where our postseason fate would lie. So now that we're in the WNIT, we just have to, like I said, continue to push forward and continue to play together as a team like we found success at the end of the season.
A lot of success for you on the court with the Crimson Tide, but also off the court. You were named to the SEC Community Service Team. Just first of all, what did that mean to you getting that recognition?
It meant a lot for me. I really feel like it's bigger than basketball sometimes. So me being able to help out in the community of Tuscaloosa and Northport and areas like that. It really means a lot to me. Like I said, it's bigger than basketball. So just for me to be able to do that and receive that recognition it's a huge honor.
And also at Alabama, you co-founded a Project ID. What can you tell us about Project ID?
Yeah, so Project ID is a student athlete led organization that is, for creating a safe space for student athletes that are identify with minority groups and also student athletes that are allies to those minority groups. So just a way to create a more family oriented athletic program here at the University of Alabama. So that's really what we're looking to do and just make friends, hang out, be able to talk about things with each other. And that's really the goal of Project ID.
How have you seen that grow over the past year with all different sports from across campus?
Yeah, it's definitely still a work in progress. We're still recruiting athletes from different teams. Right now, we're represented by women's basketball, of course, men's basketball, track and field, soccer, and baseball. And football as well. So we definitely have some diverse groups so far. So we're just really looking to expand as we kicked off in February. So still in the beginning stages, but everything is going well so far.
And how much have you enjoyed being a student athlete at the University of Alabama? And especially in women's basketball, you can look to your career at so many big moments, the buzzer beater against Mississippi State, winning in the NCAA tournament, some great wins in the SEC tournament as well. I'm sure it's been a lot of fun for you.
It definitely has. It's really flown by. I feel like I blinked and I'm already a senior. So I've definitely enjoyed my experience here. Like I've said, there's no place in the country I'd rather be than University of Alabama. So the way that they've helped me on and off the court is really been tremendous. So I appreciate, like I said, Coach Curry and the staff and the administration here. They really do big things for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your relationship with the coaching staff and what they've meant to you because you get to know them when you're a high school player. Maybe they're promising the world to you, and then it's a different thing when you get on campus. But it seems like you guys have gotten along well from the start.
Absolutely. Coach Curry, I remember her recruiting me and coming to the house for a home visit. And, really the opportunity to play was one of the reasons why I wanted to come here. So just being able to do that from my freshman year to now has really been big. And Coach Curry, she will do anything for you. If she can help you, she will definitely do it for you. So I appreciate her. And I'm glad there's still games left to be played with her as my head coach.
Big bond amongst all the Louisiana girls that are on this team, including Coach Curry?
Yes, of course. She understands our love for Louisiana food and culture. So that's always a plus as well. We're always chopping it up about food.
Yeah, well, having the king cake on the LSU trip was a treat for all of us that got to be there. Megan, before we let you go, again, exciting times for the Alabama women's basketball team. We know you have some friends on the men's basketball side as well. Just how do you feel like the guys are going to do this weekend out in San Diego?
Oh, man, I'm excited to watch them play. We always root for them like they root for us. So I'm very excited for them. I know they're going to make it far in the tournament. So just really excited to watch them and wishing them the best of luck.
Well, Megan Abrams, best of luck to you in Troy to get this tournament going, the women's NIT. We wish Alabama all the best. And just thank you so much for joining us here on Crimson Drive. We have a lot of fun. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Thank you for having me.
Fun conversation with Megan Abrams. Certainly look forward to her and the Crimson Tide tonight taking on the Troy Trojans in the first round of the women's NIT. Somebody that's been on the mic for some of the great performances by Megan this season, both on the Crimson Tide Sports Network and SEC Network Plus, is former Crimson Tide player Richard Hendrix, who of course just wrapped up a great pro career overseas, and now Richard is back around the Alabama basketball programs, men's and women's, as an analyst. And he gives some thoughts on what Alabama women need to do to advance past Troy and move on to the second round of the women's NIT, and then a lot of thoughts as well on the Crimson Tide men's basketball team starting their run in the NCAA tournament this week in San Diego, of all places, where Richard once played for the Crimson Tide in the NCAA tournament back in 2006. So I think you'll enjoy this conversation with Richard Hendrix, talking all things Alabama basketball. March Madness is here for Alabama men's and women's basketball. A really exciting time of the year. We're glad to bring back Richard Hendrix to Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Of course, Richard's called a lot of games for us on the Crimson Tide Sports Network as well as SEC Network Plus this season. And Richard, this has to be one of your favorite times of the year, right?
Absolutely. It's tournament time. Everybody's happy for March Madness, and I can't wait to this here.
Well, we're really excited for Alabama to start its run for the men's team in the NCAA tournament, the women's team in the women's NIT. Let's start with men's basketball. The Crimson Tide, last time we saw them, looked good in the first half against Vanderbilt, but a big surge late helped Vanderbilt move past Alabama, so the Crimson Tide went one and done in the SEC tournament. Just what were some of your takeaways from last Thursday against the Doors?
Well, Alabama definitely started off very spirited in the SEC tournament against Vanderbilt. The opening half got off to a hot start, but unfortunately they were not able to settle down as Vandy made a few adjustments and was able to come up with the win. 3 straight losses that Alabama has going into the NCAA tournament. It's going to be important for them to take advantage of this practice time to make some preparations, make a few changes, and reset their mind as they get ready to take on the opportunity of taking either a Rutgers team or a very, very feisty Notre Dame ball club.
And Nate Oates has talked about the fact that he liked the effort he saw against Vanderbilt, really liked it in the season finale, regular season finale against LSU. And if you combine the good effort with kind of that reset button mindset that Alabama seems to have, could that be a good recipe for success in the NCAA tournament?
Well, absolutely. It's tournament time. And when it's tournament time, it's a totally new season. And when it's a new season, you have to lock in and focus and forget everything that's happened in the past. They've had a lot of close wins, but also a lot of close losses in the season. As you mentioned earlier, the LSU game coming down to the wire in overtime. They had Vanderbilt with a chance to win the game late in the game, but couldn't pull it out. But you have to reset. You have to get your mind and body right, and you'll have a new opportunity. And in the NCAA tournament, if you can win the first game, you'll find yourself having new spirit and new life.
And what have you thought as well? Of course, you're a forward. We love talking about the post with you, but about Alabama's guards, especially scoring the basketball. Jaden Shackelford, Javon Quinterly. Is this team really going to go as its guards go in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I definitely think their leadership comes from the guard position. They're going to have a lot of dynamic play again for them. They're going to have to be knocking down shots from the outside. Alabama being perimeter oriented, if they can get a piece of the paint with dribble penetration, kick the ball out, find an open shot, it makes them dangerous. But they seem to be having a hard time knocking down some of these shots when they can't get good penetration and the extra pass to clear up a clean look. So against either one of these teams, you talk about Rutgers. Rutgers is coming in. This is the 11th seed in the tournament. They're 18-13 on the season. They actually had 12 conference wins in the Big Ten. So I would anticipate that head coach Steve Pikiell will have his team ready if Alabama is to play them. They'll have some big-time players to play against with Ron Harper Jr., Geo Baker. The performance that they'll have to have will definitely have to be top-notch, and they'll have to take that to roll if they want to get to the next round. But if the opponent happens to be Notre Dame, and you're talking about head coach Mike Brey, they haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 2016, 2017. So they will be feisty and happy to be back in. But either one of these two opponents, regardless of it is, Alabama's guard play will have to step up.
What's the challenge of playing a team that has that opportunity to play in Dayton as part of the first four? We've seen some of the first four teams have some great runs. Even last year, UCLA beat Alabama in the Sweet 16, eventually made it to the Final Four. So can the playing game give Alabama's opponent some momentum going into Friday, or is fatigue going to set in more?
No, it absolutely can. I mean, as we mentioned before, when you win the first game in the NCAA tournament, you get a little bit of momentum. I've been in this situation before. Alabama's going to be going back to San Diego, a place that when I played at Alabama in 2005, 2006, after we finished off a run of 5 straight NCAA tournaments, our opening matchup was in San Diego. If you can get a win, regardless of how your regular season has been going, you seem to pick up a little bit more life for the next game. Alabama can be a dangerous team. As Coach Nate Oates mentioned in the SEC tournament, prior, he said Alabama's a team that could win 4 games in 4 days. And this is the truth. If they can get off the schneid, come up with a really good win in the opener against Notre Dame or Rutgers, then they can be dangerous.
Yeah, a little bit of deja vu hearing San Diego and the Crimson Tide, right?
Absolutely. San Diego was good to us in my time, had an opening win against a Marquette seeded team that was seeded higher than us, the 7th seed, as we were a 10. Fell up short against the number 2 ranked or seeded UCLA Bruins, who went to the national championship game. But nonetheless, San Diego was good to us in that trip, and I hope it's good for the Tide this time out too.
And Nate Oates has talked about the fact he's really proud that Alabama is going to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, something that had not been done since that '06 trip to San Diego. As you mentioned, 5 straight for Alabama at that point under Coach Godfrey. Just as a former player and somebody that's now back around this program doing some broadcasting, just what does it mean to you to see now some consistency from Coach Oates and his players year in, year out, getting to the big dance?
Well, it's big to see some consistency and build on season after season. You know, to find yourself getting back to the NCAA tournament and being a 6 seed at that, a higher seed, gives you momentum as a program. It shows that the program is going in the right direction. It helps solidify that you have a culture of winning, and a winning attitude is going to be critical as Alabama tries to continue to ascend up the college basketball ranks and years to come. So to see the consistency, the back-to-back NCAA tournaments, hopefully they can make another run in the tournament as they went to the Sweet 16 last year, had an opportunity to advance, but they ran into a play-in team last season that was hot. So Alabama definitely knows how important it will be to be prepared for these 2 play-in ball clubs as they try to get the first victory on Friday.
We're excited for the men's team in the NCAA tournament, and the women's team is going to start its run coming up on Thursday night in the women's NIT against the Troy Trojans. And you and I had the chance to call some of Alabama's great wins in the SEC tournament. How do they try to translate that success that they had, beating a good team like Georgia, another win against Auburn, and even playing toe-to-toe for a bit with Tennessee? How do they translate that now into this new tournament?
Well, by my estimate, Alabama's been one of the hottest teams in the SEC and around the country as of late. They've been playing really good basketball. They're healthy. They have a dynamic backcourt with Megan Abrams, Brittany Davis, who've been on fire as of late. They actually ran into a little bit of fatigue in the SEC tournament when they ran into Tennessee in the quarterfinal, but nonetheless played big-time basketball against Auburn and then the upset victory against Georgia. But I tell you, as they got the WNIT draw, it doesn't get any easier. This Troy Trojan team, Lady Trojan team, is a tough team. This is the Sun Belt champions. They won 11 consecutive games going into the conference tournament before dropping a game against UT Arlington. But they will be motivated. They will be happy to have the big dog, the University of Alabama, in their home court to try to get the opening round win in the WNIT. But Alabama is a really, really good opponent. They have a lot of promise. They have a lot of commitments from players that they're going to come back next season. So I anticipate Alabama being ready. They have something to build on for momentum for this season to win this tournament and then moving forward for the next season. But this should be a good matchup.
And then you mentioned the fatigue factor against Tennessee. That was 3 games in 3 days. Now with the women's NIT, we're getting back to really a normal schedule. A game on Thursday, a game on Sunday, and kind of nothing too crazy outside of that. So that's going to give you some confidence in the shots going up and in for Alabama, especially from players like Abrams and Brittany Davis and Hannah Barber.
Well, a lot of the game in the UT game was the fact that they were fatigued. And when you are a shooting team and like to drive and don't necessarily rely on your interior low post play to get easy baskets, when the legs go, the shots fall short. Alabama was shooting hot against Auburn and Georgia specifically. Brittany Davis with a major performance, knocking down 8 trays in that ball game, and one of them from beyond NBA range, which is spectacular. Struggled a little bit against Tennessee, which is a much better team. But nonetheless, they'll have a chance to get rested, get healthy, get back in the practice court, and prepare for one game, and then have a chance to move forward, like you said, in a regular season type mentality. So I expect these girls to be prepared, ready to play, ready to fight, and try to win a championship because there's an opportunity to play for one.
And whether it's men's basketball or women's basketball, the SEC, a really strong league. We even saw that with what happened in Nashville, Kentucky upsetting South Carolina. And then you look at the men's side, Texas A&M makes a great run and even still can't make it to the NCAA tournament. Just for you this season, getting to be back around SEC basketball on both the men's and women's side, just what can you tell us about the strength of this conference right now in basketball?
Well, this whole season has been very, very fun to watch. Even more fun to watch it up close. But talented teams all the way across the board, as you see, as you mentioned, Texas A&M able to go in and run in the SEC tournament. Unfortunate for them, I think it's a snub in the NCAA tournament. You have an opportunity to win some major games in the tournament to show that I can beat Auburn in consecutive games, come back the next day and beat and play very, very good basketball. To be snubbed is unfortunate for them, but it shows of the strength of this league. But nonetheless, Alabama was able to weather the blow through the powers of this league. They have also been able to show that they've been able to beat the top competitors from outside of this league with many wins in the quad one, top 10 ranked opponents, Houston, Baylor, and the number 1 overall seed, Gonzaga. So if Alabama can get back to that form that they had back in December, back in January, to play up to their potential, they will be a tough out.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Postseason basketball here for Alabama men's and women's basketball. Richard Hendrix, former Tide great, just thank you so much for joining us to break down the matchups for the men's and women's teams, and hopefully we can do this again if Alabama keeps advancing throughout the tournament. But thank you for your time, and Roll Tide.
Thank you, Roger. Roll Tide.
Hello again, everybody. Roll Tide to Richard Hendrix. Appreciate him joining us, and hopefully we'll be able to chat with him again next week, talking more about Crimson Tide basketball, both men's and women's advancing in their respective postseason tournaments. Somebody that's already a champion at the University of Alabama this season is Bobby Colantonio Jr., as he had a terrific performance last Friday in Birmingham at the NCAA Indoor Track Championships with the weight throws. He picked up the national championship, the individual title for the weight throw. He has been a student athlete at Alabama for now 6 years, but he has a remarkable journey that you'll hear about coming up in just a moment. Somebody that's been able to defeat cancer and now is the best weight thrower in the nation with what he did last Friday in Birmingham. Just sit back and enjoy this amazing story you're about to hear from Bobby Colantonio Jr. Bobby, Roll Tide, congratulations on winning the national title in the weight throw last week. How's everything going?
Good. Very, very good.
Great performance by you in Birmingham. Let's talk about that. First of all, how are you feeling going into the national championship, and then what ultimately led to your success in Birmingham?
I was definitely a little nervous going into the meet, especially coming in as one of the top ranked throwers and having a really good season. So I knew kind of the eyes were all on me, and I had a lot of big throws throughout the year and was doing a lot of really special things. So I knew that everyone kind of be looking at me more so than in years past going to the meet. So I did feel that little extra pressure, but I mean, it felt good. I knew everyone standing in that meet next to me is just as nervous. I mean, I feel nervous for that meet every year. So I was excited and I was ready to turn that nervous energy into a big throw and win the meet. So it was very, very, very satisfying to see all the hard work and the years come together and it all pay off Friday night at Birmingham.
For our fans that may not be familiar with the weight throw, just what goes into the entire routine you have, the turn, the throw, if you could take a step-by-step through the process of what makes a successful weight throw.
Sure. So basically there's the initial part of the throw, which is just getting the ball in motion before you start taking your turns. And with the weight, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The traditional way, as far as hammer throwing goes, would be you have usually 2 winds and then about 3 or 4 turns, depending on your technique. And lately, 4 turns is kind of like the more mainstream thing, even though the world record was set with 3 turns. But with the weight, because it's a shorter and heavier implement, people actually do no winds. Some people just kind of cast it out in front. But I keep it very traditional, very simple, and just follow the hammer throw format essentially. And I try to mimic the 2. So I basically just do 1 wind and 4 turns.
What's the key to consistency for you?
It's the biggest thing is getting all your reps throughout the year. But it's really the mental kind of like toughness and the mental training that goes into that. Because at the end of the day, and I've experienced this, you can take the best reps of your life in practice and have the most consistent practices. But if you show up to the meet and don't know how to keep yourself composed and stay within yourself, it's kind of useless in a sense. So the biggest factor for me is just making sure that I train how I would compete and compete how I train. I keep my warm-ups the same. I keep my practice routines the same, my demeanor. Matter of fact, one of the things that I worked on this year within the meet is actually kind of being more social to both my coach and even some of the competitors. And if there are fans or my fellow teammates that are coming to watch, because like in practice, more often than not, like I'm throwing and I'm serious and getting my stuff going, but there's still kind of like small talk in between throws. And I know a lot of people kind of go to the meets and I do it too. It's like, you're kind of throwing, you're so tunnel vision on that, but you kind of get tense because you're out of your own rhythm. So basically my biggest thing for consistency is just making sure mentally I'm staying on top of myself and kind of alleviating myself of unnecessary pressure.
So some mental toughness helped you out on Friday night as you're able to claim the NCAA individual national championship in the men's weight throw. And for you, it has been quite a journey. You've had to have a lot of mental toughness all throughout the ups and downs your life has taken. Starting 6 years ago when you first got to Alabama, just what can you tell us about some early warning signs that ultimately led to the cancer diagnosis that you had?
Sure. So my whole kind of senior season within high school, I was kind of throwing through some at the time I thought was like knee and leg pain that eventually evolved into hip pain as well. But you know, I had gone through kind of protocol treatment throughout then, and I mean, I guess relatively have a high pain tolerance, and kind of pushed through all of that, and then eventually when I got down here, and you know, met with the training staff and all that, and was ready to start this new chapter in my life. Immediately I was just before the physicals and stuff, just got an X-ray and an MRI and got all that process going to kind of figure out what this injury was to kind of get rid of it and move on. And sure enough, when I got the images and stuff, Dr. Robinson, who is now retired, had seen that there was in the X-ray that there was an abnormality. And that's something that even like to this day, the doctors back home when I got diagnosed, who specifically know what to look for and knew that it was there, said that within that X-ray, it is extremely, extremely hard to tell. And they don't know how he actually caught it within the X-ray. Because the MRI, sure, when you have it, it's a clearer picture, more in depth, you can see it. But within the X-ray, for whatever reason, I'm not sure on this. I mean, medical professionals can speak on it better, but I know it doesn't show up much within an X-ray at all. So the fact that he saw it and then knew to get the MRI and go through those steps was saved my life. So that was kind of the initial process. And then I went home and began treatment for a year.
Diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, you're given just 20% chance of surviving. What were those tough steps, those tough days with chemotherapy and radiation like? How did your Alabama family help you during those tough times, even when you're away from Tuscaloosa?
So right from the start, like the people that I had met here on my visit, and then also like in the couple of days or that I was here, getting acclimated, moving in freshman year, and people that I never met immediately started messaging me on my way home. And when I got home and throughout that whole process, and then within like a week or two, I got a shirt in the mail that was an Alabama track and field shirt that, you know, was signed by all the athletes and the staff, anyone involved with the program. So that was really, really special to see. And honestly, I kept it hung up in my room, and it was on like a dresser. I had it kind of like hung in one of the drawers that I didn't use, and it basically draped that dresser, and I would look at it every day. And it was just a good sign of hope. And then also just seeing the people that are supporting for me and rooting for me was awesome. And then like the program as it is, the reason why I came here was because of like the family factor and always being just the camaraderie between UA athletics. Like it was more than just the track team or more than just the throwers. It went bigger than that. Like it, you know, it started with the throwers, but then the rest of the team and the staff and then other teams, any of the coaches, any of the staff at all, like everything. It was just a big, huge like camaraderie factor that I noticed here at Alabama that other schools I didn't think had, or it wasn't as at the level that we have here. So that was like a big factor to see, and it was really special for me. And it kept me going throughout the whole thing. And I mean, there was other times too. Like I remember Coach Waters had called me on their way to an SEC meet and just asked how things were going and wanted to fill me in on the team. And it was good because I got updates on the team and how things were going. I was always kept in the loop. And then I just basically focused at that time for, you know, throwing was a huge part of my life, and it was what I dedicated everything to. So I didn't really know much outside of the realm of that. So I focused on my treatment as my routine training. Basically, I knew that the end goal was to be NCAA champion and more. But that was, you know, to do that stuff, there were things that had to happen first. And basically, I just took my chemo, radiation, the stuff that was dealt at me every single day. I just took it one day at a time. I focused on that, and I just made sure that I did everything I could to make that stuff the best I could. I just tackled it, you know, positive. Like I said, like I just viewed it as training. I viewed it as a throwing practice or a lifting practice. And basically I just tried to go into every treatment and every time I went to the hospital, which is basically every day, just as positive as I could be and look at it as a positive. Don't look at it like I'm going to the hospital to get sick or I'm going to feel bad or whatever. Like that stuff doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like I just wanted to get better and get back to doing what I love. So focusing on that stuff and just making sure that I kept my head up throughout the whole process. And it was easy when I have a huge family behind me, outside of my own blood family. So it was a huge factor in where I am today.
And as you started to get healthier, how'd you start gaining back some of your strength? Because you got down to basically skin and bones at 185 pounds in your 6'4" frame. How'd you kind of get back the strength and return to form once you were healthy?
Sure. So, I mean, it was when I was in treatment, I don't even know how I did it, but I didn't eat. Like I would have inpatient chemo. And like, one of the regimens I was on was 7 days that I was inpatient. I didn't eat the entire time because like anything I ate, I would just immediately vomit up. So what I tried to do was when I was outside of the hospital, and I was feeling better, was I just tried to eat as much as I could. And then once I got off of treatment, and then I was able to, return to regular eating. So that played a huge role. And I ate a lot. It was a simple joy that I was glad to have back again and eat what I want and not have to worry about eating something and then not liking it because of an experience. So, basically with that, and then just, it took a while because I really had to be slow in order to not cause a fracture in any of my bones coming back, because that would have been very bad. That was the one thing they warned me of not to do, was just when I'm coming back lifting, is to go extremely slow and do not rush into it, because if I did have a fracture in the bones that were already compromised with the disease, they would have had to do a replacement, and then the chances of me throwing would just not be at the same level as they would be now. So that was the biggest thing, and just making sure I took everything slow and be appreciative of like where I was at and the small little victories, and then those kind of snowballed into bigger things. So it took a while. I mean, I started back out with just the first day, like a wooden stick, and just did some air squats. And matter of fact, a funny story was I remember in April when I finished up chemo, the next day when I got home, I immediately did like 2 sets of 10 of air squats. And like the next day I like couldn't walk. I was so sore. So it was just little stuff like that, and just building on it and just taking it slow and steady and focusing on the end goal.
When you think about all of your journey now to being a national champion, just who are you most thankful for, whether it's people in your family, people at Alabama, have been some of the biggest people that have helped you in this journey to a championship?
Sure. I mean, right from the start, I cannot thank the University of Alabama and Dr. Robinson and the rest of the staff enough, because I mean, that's kind of what set this whole thing up. And matter of fact, throughout the process, like they kind of set me up at home for doctors and stuff like that, and all that, and have been through me the whole time. So that in itself just saved my life right there. And that kind of was one of the key cogs in this whole thing. And then, I mean, everyone, because like it was crazy. I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of outreach I was getting and the people that were messaging me along the way. And I mean, Coach Yush, I can't thank him enough, because I had mentioned earlier in another interview that like, I mean, I don't know, but I don't think it's ever been done, is in the sense of like, he took someone and like, in circumstances that have never been experienced before. Like he worked with someone that was recovering from cancer and was whittled down to nothing. And like, that's not something you learn in a textbook or a college class, or you really encounter in a coaching career, as far as how to coach that and mentor that. So I can't believe what an incredible job he's done with me, and something that's never been done before, really. And to just test those waters, because you don't know what to expect. I will never ever respond like any other athlete that's going to come through here, as far as like, because of my body being a limiting factor. So he did a really good job with that and working with me, and he always, no matter what, did a very good job at staying positive and keep pushing me forward, and not letting me lose sight at how good I can be. So we worked together really well, and that was huge. I mean, it's really, really cool to see how far we've come and just how far I've developed in the past 5 years here. I mean, looking back at, 2019, my first year out and competing with the Tide, and placing 10th and missing the final by like a couple centimeters and being the random drug test. And then here we are now, 3-4 years later, and I'm NCAA champion, and was getting the drug test because I was the winner, not the random. So it's cool. And just to see the results and the progress along the way. And like you said, even like body composition, because like, again, when I got here, I was really light. I put on a bunch of weight, but it was more so fat just to get any kind of food intake. And then when I came here, I think I dropped another, because I got up to like 220, 230 when I got here. and then shed a bunch of weight all the way down to like almost 200 again, just because of the working out again and putting on muscle. So the journey's been insane to see, and I can't thank him enough. And then also just like my family and friends, I mean, again, at every scale, people that I've may have only seen once in my life and people that I see every day just from the start were always supporting me and pushing me.
And for you, your story is really inspirational. Do you hope to use that message down the road and when you're visiting with cancer patients or people who are going through the toughest days of chemotherapy and radiation?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I don't know how or when or you know what that will look like yet, but it's something that I've always thought about. And right now I'm kind of torn because I want to do as much as I can to give back and be like an inspiration, and just kind of the stuff that I've learned throughout treatment and being an athlete and how I mesh those together. I'd love to pass that knowledge on to other people. But at the same time, like I'm still trying really hard to be an athlete while I still can. So, you know, right now I'm kind of trying to find the balance in between those two things, and because I still want to push myself as hard as I can now and get all that I can get out of this experience, because it's not going to last forever. So I'm really excited to do that and finish that. But at some point down the line, yes, I would love to try and basically just my experience, just the stuff that I learned and the stuff that made it easy and hard and the highs and lows that I experienced. I'd love to kind of cast on to other people and see if I can help, because I know the difference that talking to some people made to me, and I can, I'd love to do the same to others and just kind of give back to that community and do whatever I can.
And along those lines as well, what are you working on right now to get ready for what's coming up in spring season, then in the summer, and everything that's beyond?
Say that again. I'm sorry. You came in broken up.
Yeah, along those lines, just what are you working on right now to get ready for the spring season, and then what's beyond that?
Yeah. I mean, right now it's kind of actually through this morning as my first session back. It's really just about just mimicking those same feels and just and doing my thing in indoors and just sticking through the plan. You know, me and Coach Yush, we come up with a plan and we stick through it. And you know, this indoor is a good example because we tried some different things this year, and we just kind of stuck to the process and didn't let certain setbacks didn't let certain setbacks hinder us. So basically just sticking with that and you know, mentally staying strong. I mean, again, it's one of those things too, like that was kind of eating up at me up until this experience was like, my sophomore year, I had fouled out of SECs and I was supposed to, you know, I was top ranked thrower going into the meet, and it was, you know, supposed to be a really special meet and kind of like the first big taste of success since my journey back. And I ended up fouling out. So that was very devastating. And then we went to NCAAs and I was ready to, you know, show the NCAA again what I can do and that I'm the real deal. And then it got canceled because of COVID. So I kind of like that sour taste kind of stuck with me for a while, but I just let it as fuel to keep working. And then the following season, I was ready to go and do my thing. And then right around towards the end of November, I tore my ab and I had to take 6 weeks off of nothing and do literally nothing until the start of the season. And then, and I threw really well coming back. I mean, I was happy with it. I was happy to get anything that I could. And it was like before NCAAs, I ended up getting a case of vertigo that lasted for about 2 weeks. Don't know why, don't know how. It just came, it stuck with me, and then eventually left. So there was just like every kind of time I was getting close to something really big, I'd always get kind of kicked down a little bit. And then we were kind of laughing about it. But this season, the Monday before SECs, I broke my toe. It's just like little, and I was in my house going to the bathroom and I just kind of hung the corner a little too tight and caught the door. But it's little stuff like that you just don't let get in your way. And I kind of was laughing about it and was saying like, well, at least now, like with that, I know that because my toe's going to be bothering me a little bit, I need to exaggerate using like my right side a little more, and that push is a key factor in the throw. So who knows, maybe it helped me because I was just focusing on pushing a little extra versus not on that as much. So it's just not letting little stuff like that get you down and just keep moving forward. Don't let that stuff, when little stuff happens, just let it go and move on. And that's kind of going to be the same thing for this year. And the biggest thing is just limiting, as I said earlier, limiting the pressure on myself. So like going into this outdoor now, like, yes, I have big stuff that I want to do, but I'm not letting it put over too much pressure on myself and carry the weight on my shoulders for no reason. I'm just going to go out there and do my thing, and the result's going to be there. I just need to focus on my cues and staying within myself, and all the good stuff will continue to happen.
We look forward to seeing that. And we also look forward to seeing you back in the Cowboy hat. We've seen that from a few athletes, but not too many of them from Rhode Island. What's the story behind that from your press conference last week?
I don't know, man. I mean, I kind of, my girlfriend kind of busts my chops and says that I should have been born in the South. But coming here kind of like allowed me to come into that, I guess. And it's just something cool that I like doing, and it's just fun. And matter of fact, I got it specifically for this pastime because I wanted to wear an all black suit. I had never done that before, and I just said I'll get a black hat to go with it. So it's been something I have another one too. So it's been something that I've been doing, but everyone does kind of bust me up about that because, again, I am from Rhode Island. So
well, hey, it's working, so keep it up. Bobby, just thank you so much for joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Really appreciate hearing your story of redemption and how you've gotten to this championship level, and we wish you all the best coming up in the spring. Roll Tide.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Roll Tide.
Big thank you to Bobby Colantonio Jr. for joining us with a remarkable story as we start to take a look at our Crimson Tide Sports Network schedule for this week. And it starts later tonight with women's basketball. I'm going to get in the car and have the Crimson drive down to Troy, Alabama for the Crimson Tide taking on the Troy Trojans later tonight, 6 p.m. Our radio coverage at 5:55 across the network. That's coming up tonight. Now, tomorrow is going to be very busy. Of course, the men's basketball team taking on Notre Dame in the first round of the NCAA tournament out in San Diego. Our airtime on the network will be 2 p.m. Central, and our tip-off will be coming up at 3:15. But Chris Stewart and Brian Passing, Tom Stipe, all having the coverage for you start at 2 o'clock from San Diego. Then the baseball team home against the Florida Gators. 6 p.m. will be the start time for them, not only Friday but also on Saturday as well. Then the softball team is home against the Kentucky Wildcats at 6 p.m. Tomorrow they'll play Kentucky at 2 p.m. on Saturday, and then on Sunday it'll be at 2 p.m. first pitch at the Rhodes House. And we know that tickets are going very, very fast for Alabama softball. And if you are not using your tickets, make sure you go online to RolledTide.com, use the ticket transfer. That way your tickets can go to an Alabama fan that wants to be there for Crimson Tide softball. As again, the demand is extremely high for tickets this season with everything Coach Murphy and the Crimson Tide players have done to this point this year, coming off an SEC championship a year ago. We want to make sure you're at the Rhodes House. So if you are not going to be able to use your tickets, make sure you please use the RolledTide.com ticket transfer to help make sure you're in the Rhodes House. Again, they're playing Kentucky at 2 o'clock on Saturday. The baseball team will be taking on the Florida Gators at 6 p.m. at Sewell Thomas Stadium. Don't forget, you have the opportunity to sit in the right field terrace for the games coming up this weekend. Afternoon ball games on Sunday for both of those teams, and then women's and men's basketball. We're not sure just yet. Alabama needs to win to advance for the men in the NCAA tournament. We know they would play on Sunday. Women's basketball team most likely would play in the second round of the women's NIT, either at Jacksonville State or at Tulane on Sunday. Now, there's a possibility it could be on Saturday, but most likely it will be on Sundays. The Crimson Tide will be on the road throughout the women's NIT. Then we'll talk all about it on Monday night. Another edition of Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance, coming up from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Hope you can join us there at 6 p.m. to talk Crimson Tide athletics. It's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, and again, what is, as you can see, a very busy week for Alabama athletics, but we certainly appreciate you joining us today. We thank as well Megan Abrams, Richard Hendrix talking about Alabama basketball, as well as Bobby Colantonio Jr. for sharing his amazing story on the way to a national championship. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, as again, it's a very busy time here at Alabama. Again, I'm hitting the road right now to go to Troy to get set for Alabama against Troy in the women's NIT, but we look forward to that coming up tonight, and especially men's basketball coming up tomorrow in the NCAA tournament. We'll talk all about Alabama athletics again next week, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Central, right here on the CTSN Facebook page. Special thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our producer, for putting all of this together. Thanks to all of you for watching. Now, just get ready. We have so much to look forward to this weekend here at the University of Alabama, so get ready to cheer on the Crimson Tide. Till next time, Roll Tide, everyone.